Good afternoon, educators. Welcome to Minggu Belajar bersama Mentari Teachers Academy, presented by Mentari Group and Mentari Teachers Academy. Educators, please welcome Miss Linda Setiawan.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for a wonderful introduction from Mr. Mardana and also the opening remarks from Mr. Aloysius to begin our session this afternoon. If I could get a little bit of assistance from the operator so I can hear a bit of a noise from our participant this afternoon, that will be wonderful. I just want to say hello to all of you. Hello, hi.
Hi, Miss Linda.
Hi, nice.
Hello.
So this tells me that you are
Nice to
capable of
meet
speaking
you.
directly to me when we allow you to. So, so I'm expecting you to be able to do that every now and then. Hello, hello. Okay,
Hello, nice
we're
to
going to
meet
put
you.
you on mute for now, but don't worry. At different parts of the lesson, I will try my best to provide you with opportunities wherein we can interact. You can ask me questions directly. By the way, speaking on questions, you can also type your questions as you think about the different things that I am presenting. Later on, please just put those questions in the chat box, and there will be two opportunities that we have set for you in which I will address the questions that you might have related to our topic this afternoon, so that Can you hear me just okay? You can just put your thumbs up if you can hear me okay. All right, thank you very much. I can see your reactions, wonderful. So my name is Linda, and this afternoon, allow me to begin by sharing my screen with all of you. Our topic for today is assessment tools in mathematics. And of course, assessment is probably one of the area or one of the topics that we are grappling with every single day. We as teachers have to make decisions every day how we will assess and how we will use those assessment data to inform our teaching and to inform students' learning, right? So, okay. Here are the main references that I'm using for this presentation. So as you can see, I am using some materials from MC-EDU Hub. Maybe some of your schools have adopted MC-EDU Hub, so you'll be seeing me putting those materials in action, and you can get involved directly in those activities. So if you're looking for ideas how to make the materials come alive, I hope that you can get some inspiration you can use and modify in your classes later on. Also, I am using materials from my pulse, as you can see. So if you notice some illustrations later on or some questions that you're familiar with, indeed, I am taking those questions from my pulse. Okay, so there are two objectives I'm hoping to cover through our session. The first one is to review key principles of formative assessments. And secondly, we would like to also explore a variety of assessment tools and their advantages. So the exploration part will take the most part of my presentation. So you will get involved, you will get engaged in the activities that I have prepared this afternoon. But to begin with, let me just review very briefly some learning theory that we could ground some of our practices regarding assessment on. So there's not any theory in particular in which to derive, assessment, but one learning theory that I thought might be helpful to guide our discussion this afternoon will be from Lev Vygotsky. And you're probably quite familiar with this diagram. It's a diagram of the learning, basically. And what this diagram tells us is there are different areas in which someone can learn or can do, right? So in the innermost circle, it says that's the area that someone, so if I'm a learner, that's something that I can learn, or perhaps sometimes I can do on my own. Okay, so that is something that I already know, something I have full confidence in doing, something I can do independently. Now there's also other area that is the furthest here with the dotted line around them, which is says beyond my reach. So basically, no matter how much support I get as a learner, I will not be able to do such a thing, or I will not be able to access that learning opportunity yet. However, there's also this area called ZPD, which is short for Zone of Proximal Development, proximity, right? Relatively close to what I can do on my own. And this is the area where we as teachers, we would try to get students into. We want to bring them into their ZPD. And we as teachers, in this diagram, we are this knowledgeable other. So more knowledgeable others, or sometimes referred to as mentors, can help students to get from what they can learn on their own to what they can learn or do with a little bit of help. So then their capacity is expanded a little bit. The student's capacity is expanded a little bit by the help or the assistance of more knowledgeable others. I suppose the additional thing here, or the additional point that could also be considered as the more knowledgeable others, would be technology and tools. I think this is particularly relevant for the context where we are finding ourselves at the moment, because we are, for the most part, teaching remotely. So technology and tools have been our partner, right, to help our students learn. In some schools adopt a program in which they can do flipped learning, in which the technology actually precedes the learning or the discussion in class. So in that case, students learn some of the basic facts through videos, for example. And the videos have served as the technology and tools that indeed help students to learn. Just an illustration, ZPD, right? So maybe this girl is confident enough to ride the bicycle with extra wheels, you know, particularly like putting at the back wheel. But then now she's trying to learn how to ride the bicycle without the wheel anymore. And now the grandfather in this picture is being the more knowledgeable other who's pushing from the back, but also giving a little bit of guidance, giving support. You know, that's what we do as teachers. And according to Vygotsky, precisely that social interaction with other people will help learning, will help develop the child cognition. And joint productive activity, or the activity in which the learner and the more knowledgeable others do together, and the learner learns something, is called joint productive activity that enhances learning. So in that case, learning then is a shared responsibility between the students and the teacher. So where does formative assessment comes before we go any further, right? Formative assessment, of course, is part of of what we call scaffolding process, in which during this joint productive activity, the more knowledgeable others will provide support and guidance and everything that is necessary to bring the learners to their zone of proximal development. And in the process, of course, formative assessment is an important part. So now, before we move on any further, which is a few key points that I would like to highlight regarding formative assessment, I have a question in which you can participate and start reflecting on your own experiences as educators or as a learner of some sort. So my question is rather simple. It just says, briefly describe a joint productive activity through which you have improved. Let me just improved on a skill or gain new knowledge. So let me say it one more time. Briefly describe a joint productive activity through which you have improved on a skill or gain new knowledge. So you may start thinking now, and in a moment, I'm going to ask Mardana, our moderator, to send a link through a chat box so you can click on that link and participate in the poll. So you will share your experience as a free response poll. Yep. So Mardana, perhaps you can help me a bit by sharing the link to all participants at this time. And allow me to also stop sharing this part and move on to the poll. I need to activate that first, so don't panic if you are able to access the page but not yet the question. Now I'm activating it for you. So here it is.
Wait.
I can also help. Okay, I think that should get you to the right page.
Sorry.
I can assist you as well. Don't worry.
All right.
So here you go. I'll just share with everyone in the meeting. I
Sorry,
think
apologies. Yeah, that's the correct one. Sorry.
That's okay. Sometimes I also did revise the link. Okay, if you are able to access the page, you will be prompted with this question. You'll be prompted to answer this question that says, briefly describe a joint productive activity through which you have improved on a skill or gain new knowledge. So it means you have to think of yourself as a learner and think about someone else or a tool or possibly even technology that's becoming the more knowledgeable other. And then how these two interact so that you are learning something new as a learner. Okay, so putting yourself now as a learner instead of as a teacher, in which you have improved on a skill or gain new knowledge. It doesn't, I will not limit you only in classroom contexts, you know, you may put yourself as a learner in any aspects, in any other area. So it doesn't have to be something related to pedagogy or mathematics or a classroom. It can be something related to your hobbies, such as cooking, perhaps. Could be something related to music. Yesterday, let me just throw an example out there for you. Yesterday, I had a participant who wrote that he was learning to read Al-Quran from his late father. And somebody who's learning to sing a song, I think, from her late mom. So you see that all these more knowledgeable others certainly influence and enhances our learning and enable us to develop our capacity as learners. Let me just refresh this. In the meantime, I don't think I've gotten a response yet. Could I get a reaction if you can all access the correct page, actually? I'm just rather afraid that it can probably be the trouble in the link or something. Game. Okay, I see a word. So it means it's accessible. Okay. Oh, how to play games. I think you have to put your answers. I think once you have submitted your answers, you will not be able to revise it unless you submit a different answers. So if you wish to form a sentence, so we can all see, like for instance, this one right here. I don't know who you are because it doesn't tell me your name yet. I think I should be able to look at the names later on. I think this is a helpful example. Pandemic era helps me a lot on how to get involved in technology nowadays that can be used in a classroom. Beautiful. The teacher helps a small group of children to create a joint product, like example, making ice cream. Oh, lovely. I love ice cream. Online direct quiz, such as Kahoot. Yep, that can certainly be the tool. The more knowledgeable others that can help, right, in the process. Especially if you as a teacher utilize that. Later on, we will be doing some sort of activity similar to Kahoot, not Kahoot, but similar to that one, in which I will guide us, as in this case, the more knowledgeable others. Let me just wait maybe about 2 more minutes before I close this poll. Collaborative work, oh, this is beautiful, where each person uses their expertise. Right? Professional learning communities or curriculum groups in your schools, whatever you name it. Some schools, they have teams consist of teachers of the same grade level in which they will meet regularly, and perhaps someone will share an expertise on a particular apps that week. Someone else will share a particular expertise on something else. Oh, this is interesting. Playing Go, okay. Oh, there is a community to play together. Very nice. Yeah, yesterday I was just reading something about gamification and how it can, you know, obviously the session is not about that, but how some parts of that could actually be a good model for pedagogy. That's interesting. Wow. Very, very interesting. So different platforms, sure. Technology can certainly help us. Just like part of the video that you watched at the beginning, right? How technology helps some students to measure angles and name angles. Okay. So let me just close the poll for the moment. Don't worry if you didn't get your answers to be on display at the moment. There will be 2 more opportunities in which you can participate using this platform. Okay. So allow me to come back to my screen now. We were just done with the joint productive activity. I think it's always good whenever we are able to put ourselves in our learner's shoes. So that way we are aware of their condition, we know what the challenges are, we know what could benefit the most, etc. Okay, so I'm going to come back here now because we're going to focus our attention now to formative assessment. I just came across this quote about assessment by Paul Black, who is an assessment expert who has written books on assessment. And what he says is, when the cook tastes a soup, that is formative assessment. When the customer tastes a soup, that is summative assessment, right? I am a fan of cooking shows, and a lot of times, what makes it really fun is actually being able to watch the process, what's going on behind the scene before, a lovely cuisine or a lovely dish is being presented to the judges. Okay, and one of the most frequent reminders often is, have you tasted your food? Did you check the taste? Sudah cek rasa belum? If it is in Indonesian, right? So when we as a teacher taking that measure, we want to know whether or not our students are getting it, right? Whether they're on track, are they enjoying and engaging with the lesson that we are doing? That is formative assessment, right? In this case, when the customer tastes the soup would be maybe some of the things that are anticipated right now, right? The end of semester exams for some of your schools, or end of semester tests or project, whatever you name it, that is summative. But what we are going to discuss today will be formative assessment. So it's what's behind the scene, it's the day-to-day. So I just want to share 3 key things with you this afternoon regarding formative assessment. So formative assessment, of course, is often referred to as assessment for learning. And formative has the word form in it, which is another way to say form is shape. So formative assessment shapes our instructions daily. Sometimes even not just daily, but if we're teaching 2 parallel classes, for example, right? We're teaching one in the morning, another one in the afternoon. What happens in one class in the morning often affects the way we're going to teach in the afternoon, isn't it? Maybe we change the order of the lesson a little bit. Maybe we would like to reduce or increase certain examples of certain areas and other things, other kind of decisions. I've come across this statistics one time that says one of the professions in which a lot of decision makings are made on a daily basis would be teaching profession. It means all of you every single day making these decisions to shape your instructions to benefit your learners to the best that you can, to the best of their ability. Formative assessment, the last one here, formative assessment is in close linkage, if not inseparable, part of teaching and learning. And to illustrate this, allow me to just share a little bit of a veteran teacher story. I had this one colleague at school. She's a veteran teacher. She's taught for probably more than 30 years. Practically all of her career or all of her job has just revolved around teaching. And one time she was just telling me one of this challenge that she had to overcome with online learning. It's not so much about, the use of technology. She got used to it after a little while, but it is her inability to look at her students' expression as she was teaching them. Because you see, like sometimes when I am, you experience this too firsthand, right? When you are sharing your screen like this, you cannot really see all of your students at once, perhaps small groups of them, right? But you have to just navigate between your slides and looking at their face. So the point of the story is formative assessment sometimes include those kind of informal observation, right? Looking at the face of your students to gauge with them, to engage with their, with those expressions. What does that tell you, right? Are they with you? Are they sort of lost, perhaps? Are they paying attention, etc.? So the point here, formative assessment is so critical to our day-to-day decision-making as a teacher. So here are 3 goals of formative assessment. It helps us to identify students' needs. It provides us with actionable information regarding students' learning. And thirdly, it might reveal any misconceptions that students may hold. And we may even use those misconceptions as a learning tool. So it comes back to them. Let's think about your mistakes and what can we learn from it? How can we do better next time? What can we learn from this mistake, right? Okay, these are just some, and this is going to be the last theoretical background before we get into the demonstration. So as I am about to launch these activities, I'd like to encourage every single one of you to think about these varying dimensions of formative assessments, which means that as I'm sharing some ideas with you, and this is what I often say in my sessions, so for those of you who have attended my sessions before, you're probably quite familiar that I would usually say, please do not treat my strategies as, in Bahasa, we will call it obat manjur, or as the only way or the only prescribed way, the correct way to do things, you know, because you get the idea, but then you come back to your class. And of course, the situations in your class, there are different learners there in your class and you're the experts. So sometimes you might need to modify it a little bit, right, from the ideas that you have gathered through this session. And these are some of the dimensions of those formative assessments that you might consider. It might be formal, informal. It might be open-ended or closed-ended. It might be process-oriented or product-oriented. Might be individual or group. Might be oral or written. Might be real-time feedback versus delayed feedback. Okay, so what I will model this afternoon, of course, is what will work in our context and time, in our space and time that we are sharing together. But later on, when you're in your classes, you have all the power to modify it, to make it to the best that you could for the benefit of your learners in the class. All right, Ibu dan Bapak, so we have arrived to the first part of the demonstration. And this is usually the fun part, isn't it? Because you get to be part of this activities. And in this part one, I will demonstrate two assessment tools. The first one is quiz or learning games. And the second one will be teachers' questions. So let me begin with the first one. This is numbers to 10. So as you can see, this is a lesson that I took from my pulsar here, book 1A. Before I go any further, I just want to know, I'm just curious, can you give me a thumbs up if you're teaching grade 1 or grade 2? Because this might be particularly relevant to you or for your class. Okay, thank you, Ms. Nur Fauzia. See your thumbs. Oh, Mr. Nestor, Ms. Ika. Okay, maybe a couple more. There's just a lot of screen. Okay, thank you so much. So this will be relevant for you. If you don't teach that particular grade level, it doesn't mean that you cannot get anything out of it, right? It just means that this is my idea, and then you can adjust the content areas. So here's numbers to 10. It says 1, 2, 3, 4, hear the mighty ocean roar. So use the use of rhyme, right? 5, 6, 7, 8, time to play, so don't be late. What's next? 9 and 10. Let's start all over again, right? So you hear the sound of the rhyme there. 4 and roar, 8 and late, 10 and again, right? Rhyming words, which is very appropriate, of course, for this age group. How many balls are there? That's the question here. So the next activity should be, prompting the students to count together or to get to know numbers up to 10. Integers, we would call it in the upper grades perhaps, right? Numbers to 10. Okay, so what sort of skills then would you expect your students to be able to possess after this lesson? Oh, let me share that again with you. I think the previous one, this is what I mean. I was reading through the rhymes with you, but if you notice here, what I'm reading, these are the words that rhyme. 4 and roar, 8 and late, 10 and again, okay? So as a teacher, in terms of assessment, we might think, okay, what type of skills or what are some of the knowledge that I want my students to grasp or to master, to hold, to take hold of by the end of the lesson, right? It's to know these numbers from 1 to 10, and there are different representations. These numbers could be represented by pictures, by written words, such as in this poem, right? 1, as in as in ONE, chew as in TWO, etc. And there's also the numbers as symbols, such as what you see here under the word chapter. What number is that, right? Number 1. What number do you see here? Number 10. Okay, so in light of that lesson, I'm not going to go through the full lesson because you're the experts on that already, but I will just invite you to enjoy this activity, engage in this activity as you are doing this, because you will experience it firsthand and you'll know what the benefits are for you and for your class. And again, let me just give you a little bit of background, and then in a moment, I will ask Mardana to again assist me and share the link to Student Desmos. So as you can see here, there are 2 activities or 2 virtual boards that you will be able to access later on. Now, the first boards consist of pictures and words and some symbols for numbers, okay? It's between 1 to 10. I don't think every single number is represented, but most of those numbers are. And the idea behind this is, as you can see, it's matching cards. Cari pasangannya, right, in Bahasa. So you will find the cards that will show you the same thing. So for instance, 4 with 4 and etc. You might have noticed that some of these pictures look similar to those pictures that you can find on the pages of my pulse. Indeed, I'm taking the pictures from there, okay? So I'm using what's already in the material and then change the form a bit so that it will be accessible for our class right now, online class. Now, the second activity has 2 parts. The first part is multiple choice, and the second part is a yes or no question with a little bit of explanation, okay? So without any further ado, thank you, Mardana, for sharing the link with us. Feel free to access the board, and let me also refresh the page here on my board. If you're looking for ideas to involve all of your students in some sort of matching activities, sorry, let me get rid of that one. Oh, I see that about 10 of you perhaps, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of you are able to access the page right now. Feel free to answer. The way you will sort out, let me just show from a student perspective now. The way you will answer this question, or the way you will match those cards, is quite simple. All you need to do is just drag your pointer to get closer to, let's say, this picture right here, the apple. And then you will, of course, this is as if you were a student, right? The expectation would be a student look at the picture of these apples. They will count the apples, right? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I see there are 4 apples. So you'll bring this picture closer to, sorry, I was already doing some thinking as I was speaking. So I would look around and see, okay, which one shows me 4, right? Okay, then I'm gonna go this way. That shows me 4, okay? Sometimes they're not only a pair, there are some numbers that will come as triplets. So picture, words, and symbols. Okay, so some are pairs, some are triplets. Okay. All right, we're just gonna wait for a bit so people can have an opportunity to try. Also, another feature of this platform is that once I see names, obviously I know that these are the many people that have been able to access the board. And then once I see a blue dot in this box, then I know the activity has been completed by that student, or at least they're in progress. Okay. So please do the activity. You're not going to mess up with the system, because once you are able to access, it will be the board that is unique to you. So no one else will access your board. Jadi nggak usah takut ya kalau udah diakses lalu di matching nanti jadi mengganggu sistemnya. Ini kesempatan untuk mencoba, jadi silakan dicoba. Nanti kita bisa lihat hasilnya bersama-sama ya. Let me see an overview. I see that there's no response yet. So please feel free to match those cards as I've shown you. And I'll get back to the results in just a moment. So it seems like many of you are able to access it. It's just I do not see the answers yet. Okay. If any from our committee would like to get in one more time and just, you know, try matching up those cards again, just to kind of like setting the examples, it will be excellent too. Okay. So here's the board. You have to drag it so the items will come closer to the other numbers or words that will match. Okay. Let me put a refresh here. Ah, this is what I have been waiting. I think all I needed to do was just refreshing. So you see, teachers, I'm going to go through and show you the actual board in a minute. But thank you so much for this many people who have tried, who have attempted to find a matching pair. So you see, if this were in a real classroom, in your own classroom, these are the names of your students just above every box. And then the green color shows the matching pair. So let me just take an example from Miss Sinta right here. Okay, this is what she did. So there are 3 cards. You remember I said that some of these cards will have their match in triplets. So 5, this is 5. This is the symbol for 5. And there are 5, I don't know, I think this is whales, 5 whales, okay? 5 little whales. And here's the matching pair for 10. So 10 and another 10. There are 2 cards match up with 10. Okay, you could even ask to show answer key, and every green means that you have figured out the answer correctly. Okay, so this works a lot like, let me just tell you also a little bit. So a little bit of story behind this. Because to be honest with you, all my intention when I was preparing this was just, of course, it's going to be part of a class activity, but it's because I know that matching is one of the activities that's often presented in books such as My Pause, for example. And then how can I use what's available in order to make use of those materials from that My Pause, transform it a bit so that it will be useful for an online class. Okay, maybe I'll just, orange means something is not matched, okay? Okay, let's go to board number 2. Oh, thank you so much. I see a lot of answers as well. This is from my board, my board as a teacher. So as a teacher, you kind of have a different board than your students, but you're able to have an access to your students' answer. Okay. So in this case, let me go through each question, shall we? Number 1, which sentences are correct? So there are 4 available sentences, and we ask the students, I ask you as my students in this class, to determine which of these sentences are correct. Okay. Question A or statement A, a bicycle has 2 wheels. Okay, that is a correct sentence. So you see, this is still in the context of the discussion of knowing numbers up to 10. So of course, the examples here do not exceed 10. And that is also something that I would kind of remind all of you, I guess, or just make all of us aware again. Sometimes we are using supplementary resources or even the resources that we've had. I remember one time my mentor, when I was still doing my student teaching, always reminded me that whenever you choose for resources, Linda, look at the resources, or I guess whenever you are utilizing resources too, that works too. Look at it with the eyes of a teacher. And what she meant by that was, you know, apply critical thinking here. Think critically about the resources you've got. Like for instance here, if I look at all these examples, none of these numbers exceed 10 yet. So it means it's very appropriate. So, you know, sometimes a lot of times using a resources that is good, that tells you this is a good resource. Why? Because it has some connection with what's being learned. So sometimes we are making use also of supplementary resources. Put your teacher's eyes as you're looking out at those resources as well. Is that really relevant with what the students are learning? Is that on target? Is that off track or on track? Okay, anyways, here are your answers. The only sentence that's incorrect would be sentence C. It should be the other way around, isn't it? 7 is greater than 5. 5 is not greater than 7. In question 2, it says, can you show a pattern using all these numbers? This would be interesting. If I may hear from some of you, this will be excellent. And I will need Pak Ruswan's help as our operator to enable some of our participants here to just read out what they have written here, okay?
Already, Miss.
Oh, already. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Mr. Ruswan. We have such a wonderful team who's working behind the scene. Okay, can I hear from perhaps Mr. Evan? Because your name is first here.
Yes.
Yes, hello, Mr. Evan. How are
Yes.
you?
Hello, I'm fine.
Hi, Mr. Evan.
Hi.
Could you just read through your answers here, and maybe if you can just explain briefly with us if you feel comfortable enough to do it?
Yes. For the number 2, I don't think that there is a pattern over there because the 9 becomes 6 is minus 3. 6 becomes 3 minus 3 again. But suddenly the 3 becomes 7. It's plus 4.
Ah.
And then the 7 becomes 5 minus 2. We don't see any patterns over there.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Evans. So the first two kind of works, but after that, the pattern breaks down, isn't it? Because suddenly there's a change of rule. And according to what we learn about pattern, it has to be consistent rule. It has to be the same rule, consistently applied, okay? Let me just take another sample, okay? If I don't call on you, it doesn't mean that in the class, I would say, it doesn't mean I don't like you or I don't like your answer. It just means I will give you another opportunity sometime else, sometime in the future. Okay. This is quite interesting. Can I hear from Fitra? Is Fitra here?
Yes, miss.
Oh, hello, Miss Fitra.
Hello.
Hello. Would you like to share your answer with our group here? Let me show you the question again, yeah? Okay.
So I supposed to use keep counting 3 from 9 to 6, 6 to 3, but I can't use keep counting on 7 and 5.
Okay. So I see the similarity between your answers and Mr. Evans' answer earlier. So the 9, 6, and 3 seems to go well together, right? But not with the 7 and 5. Okay. Well done. Thank you, Ms. Fitra, for sharing with us. So you see that sometimes even things like that, as you look at your students' answer, if this were to be a synchronous lesson, just like what I am demonstrating, we can talk about the answers a little bit. But if you wish to modify this activity and assign this type of activity as a homework instead, then you can take a look at the answers later on. You can choose to do a lot of things, make different decisions than what I am making. This is one way and one decision, but every single one of you might have different ideas or maybe similar ideas too. Okay. So we're going to close that activity for now. Thank you so much again. Your responses always enriches a session like this. Yes, I am sharing with you and facilitating this session and leading this session, but what you have shared with each other certainly will enrich our discussion. So that's the first activity. Don't worry, as I've said, we still have a couple more games. And for this one, again, I think our operator has enabled you to talk about it. And while I am opening the page for all of you, it's going to be a game, so don't worry. In a minute, you will see it. It's actually almost ready. Just in 10 seconds, it's going to be ready. So before we play this game, and if you were in a class, of course, you can group your students or put your students, like 5 of them maybe, and then one is going to go one after another like that. But for the sake of this activity today, maybe if I can I get 5 volunteers? All you will do, okay, I should model being a good teacher by letting you know what you're getting yourself into, right? Can you all see my screen? Can somebody tell me what do you see on the screen? Can you see my screen? Okay. Let's.
Yes, Miss.
Oh, fish. Okay, fish. Okay, it means that that's the correct screen to look at. Okay, so here, if you volunteer, if you decide to volunteer, and you can just say yes if you wish to volunteer yourself to it. Let me just share with you now. The sound should also come out a bit in the background. Okay, so this is basically a game that is available in MCEDU Hub. And let me just stop sharing my computer sound for a moment so you can focus on the instruction a bit. So in this case, what you will do is I'm going to choose the subtraction, and I will increase the level of difficulty a bit. So we're going to take a look at numbers between 1 to 20. And then what you will do as a volunteer is you will find a matching pair. Let me just click on this one. This is what the activity is going to look like. So this is about, adding or subtracting. But instead of giving the question out, the answer is available and you will come up. That's an extra rule. So you have another chance to correct your answer. Okay. So do we get any volunteers, Mardana?
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, so anyone,
Okay.
you can raise your hand or
Yes.
you can
Yes.
also unmute yourself if you will.
Sure.
Yeah, we got someone.
Okay. The game has not started yet. So if you change your mind and you want to be one of our volunteers, you can just say yes on the chat box. And Mardana, could you assist me a little bit by just calling the name on the participants who raise their hand so that they can give us an answer here? Okay. All right. So I see that the chat section has filled out. So I'm going to choose subtraction 1 to 20, and shall we start? Here's the first one. Who wants to take this? Any takers?
Yes.
We need to get a 7.
So we have Mr. Evan Trio here.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Evan.
Should I tell or should I click?
You can let me know and I'll drag those backs for you.
Okay, the easiest one, 7 minus 0.
Oh, yeah. If you think you see another answer, you can just type in the chat as well, okay? Sometimes it's more than one answer. Thank you, Mr. Evan. Can I get a different person? If you wish to speak up at this point, that will be helpful.
We have Fitra El Nurianda.
Okay. Can you tell us what the number should be?
14 minus 7. Let's change.
Yes, it's changed.
Wait. Oh, no.
I'm still not moving it yet. You can let me know and I'll move those items for you.
Or shall we go to somebody else first?
Sure, Miss Ika.
Miss Ika, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Miss.
What should I put?
I think it should be 7 minus 3.
Oh, yeah, okay. There you go. I'm sure the chat box is flooded right now also with other possible combinations.
Yes.
Let me just try one more. What shall I have here? Anyone? You can just speak up and I can hear you and I can put those backs down for you. The result should be 1. So what two numbers give a difference?
18 minus
1?
17.
Sure, 18 minus 17. Okay. For the sake of time, I will just quit at this time. And I'd be curious to look at some of the results here as well. Okay, 18 minus 17, 18 minus 17, 7 minus 3 for 4, but there's also 19. 19 minus 5 was from the previous one, I think 11 minus 7. So there's more than one possibilities, right, with that one as well. And of course, I was just giving you a quick taste of what it could look like in your class. And as I've said, it doesn't have to be that way. If you've had the access to MCEDU Hub already, or your students have the access, even better, right? Then you can assign that activity as an independent practice for your students. Some students do appreciate things like that. I think we saw one of the answers from the previous question that says something about game, right? Something that is in the context of game usually is, you know, bring about that response of, okay, it must be fun. I want to try. And there's animated, there's the sound, there's even the sound of the water, right? Like bloop, 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 bloop. So it's just more interesting. Okay, but the most important thing is it does give the concept of, you know, give the opportunity for students to really be able to demonstrate what subtraction sentence will yield the correct answer, right? So that in itself is even a little bit different from the traditional type of question, which is also good to use, but this is another version of it. What if I give you the answer and then you come up with the correct sentence, which is of course good for higher order thinking, if you're thinking about promoting that as well, okay? So we have another one for game before we move on to the questions, teacher's questions, I mean, and then after that, we will have the first QA. So this one is, again, you might have noticed, I'm taking this from my pulse, I'm sorry. My pulse, this is still book 1. So talking about some of the very basic number facts and also basic operations involving small numbers, okay? We're gonna play in, this is what it originally says on the box. So it will involve 2 players and it will involve a spinner. Now, each one of you probably has some sort of paper or notebook in front of you. This can involve as many of you as possible. So if you didn't get a chance to involve in the previous one, because maybe you were not getting a chance yet to unmute yourself, you can certainly involve in this one, okay? And I would just remind our operator at this point, if you can put a highlight later on to some of our participants, that will be wonderful. So here's the instruction, okay? What you are about to see will be 2 screens consisting of spinners. By the way, I know some teachers are thinking, where can I get spinners like this? You know, if you go online and just look for online spinners, there's plenty for you, okay? So this is the first spinner. Kalau di dalam bahasa Indonesia kayak kuis berhadiah ya. So diputar, and then if your number comes out, oh, you come forward and you get the prize, isn't it? Okay, so it's similar idea. So as you can see, here are the numbers from 11 to 20 for the first spinner. And for the second one, oh, I went too far. The second spinner will have numbers from 1 to 10, okay? So what I'm gonna do is, as a teacher, you might prepare your paper and pencil or paper and marker at this point. Very simple. I'm spinning each of these wheels and then it will land on a number. And then you will make note of each of those numbers and you will tell me the difference between the 2 numbers. So let me repeat. I will spin both wheels one at a time. Make note carefully on which part of the spinning wheel it's landed. Write down the 2 numbers and find the difference between the 2 numbers. So we are still practicing how to subtract with a different way. Okay, as a good teacher, I will ask you, can you please give me a thumbs up? Could be a reaction or could be physically you're showing your thumb. Thank you, Fanide. Well done. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Marife. Thank you. Who else? Yudi and Ahmad. Excellent, Anissa. Okay. Just to be sure you are paying attention. Okay, so you can show. And then later, once you think you have put down those 2 numbers and also the result, what you can do is really quite simple. You can really see this one, okay? Something like that. So you show it in front of your camera and then our operator will take it from there. We'll put a highlight. So don't be shocked if suddenly your screen with your name grows bigger. It's just us trying to show what you have. Okay, so as many of you can show it and whomever the operator chooses to put a spotlight on, that's what's gonna get bigger on the screen. Okay, let's try. Okay, so here's the first one. I'm gonna spin the wheel. It's in between. So let me spin it one more time to hopefully. Okay, that's our first number. Quickly write it down. And there's the second number. Also in between, so cancel that. Let me try one more time. There's the second number. Okay, so first and second number have been found already. Write it down. And let's see who got that first one. Pak Ruswan, he can help us. Oh, Pak Ruswan is always so quick. He's so good. 16 minus 3 equals 13. Excellent, Gladys. Thank you. Is there another answer? Oh, it looks like Miss Agatha here also gets an answer. 16 minus 3 equals 13. And also Fanny de Agustina gets 16 minus 3 equals 13. Well done. I will give you a clap through reaction. Well done. Thank you so much. Let's try one more time. Or maybe two more times, right? I need to get back to the bigger number. I'm going to spin the wheel, pay attention, and see where it lands. Hopefully it lands on the correct spot. Okay, that's the first number. And that's the second number. Okay. Let's see. Yep, Miss Agatha, Miss Nur Fauzia. I see that there is equal sign, but the bottom part is just a little, I think, kahapus dikit, yeah? Okay, thank you, Miss Nur Fauzia. One last one, okay? And then I'm ready to move on to a different part of this demonstration. All right, let me spin the wheel. One last chance. If the bapak-bapak in this group would like to also show very quickly to the camera so Pak Ruswan can watch for the bapak-bapak answer, that will be wonderful. Okay, that's the first number. And that's in between, so let me just spin it again. That's the second number. So Pak Ruswan, be on the lookout. Maybe some of the male teachers also have some answers. Oh, Pak Ahmad, wonderful. I see it's 14 minus 7 equals 7. Okay. There's also Miss Rizky here showing the same thing. Miss Anissa, well done. And Eka Novita, Pak Yudi, interesting, very nice. Okay, so something you could still do in your classes. I used to really like doing this kind of activity, you know, as a fresher at the beginning of the lesson. And if that was in a classroom in which students have small whiteboards, they can all hold it up, you know, so you give some questions, they can all hold it up, yeah. And then you can see very, very quickly, scan through the room and see who's getting the correct answer and who hasn't gotten the correct answers yet. It's always very fun. So now I start to believe what my other teacher friend told me. You know, one of the most powerful tool in a classroom for a math teacher would be the whiteboard and the marker. Don't you think so? Okay. Thank you so much for your participation. It made it so much more fun when a lot of people can participate. If we didn't get the chance to put you in the spotlight, don't worry. The session is still more than halfway through. We still have a lot of opportunities. So now let's take a look at factors and multiples. So this one, not only as many of you can participate, all of you, I would say, can even participate. Yeah. And this is now the content for grade 4. As you can see from the reference here, this is from book 4A. So students are discussing about factors and multiples. Here are just some illustrations here. What are factors and multiples? They are very much related. So if 24 equals to 8 by 3, it means 8 is a factor of 24. 3 is also a factor of 24. And of course, 3 times 8 equals 24. So 24 is a multiple of 3 and 8. Okay. So that's more or less the kind of lesson that could have taken place before this. And for this one, some of you probably have been familiar with quizzes, and now I challenge you to participate in the quiz that I have created for you about factors and multiples. We're not really interested to see the winner, okay? Just get the hang of it. If this is the first time for you to try quizzes, just to get the hang of it. Let me just continue on with this one. Okay. And I will share the link in a moment with all of you. Let me just copy it now and share it via chat to everyone in the meeting. And the spotlights can probably be taken away for now, Pak Ruswan. Thank you. Because we are ready for the quiz. So you should be able to see the link now. So just check the chat box, and I'll give you a chance to sign in. Those of you who have used quizzes before, you probably know that one of the times that must be allocated when you are doing this kind of activity will be the wait time for your students to start logging in. I'll just wait maybe about a minute or two, just so I can get a little bit more participants here. If by the end of my wait time, you're not able to get in yet, please do not feel like you're left out. You can still take a look at the questions on the board or on the screen. I will have it accessible for you to look at, and you can still work it out by using your paper and pen or paper and pencil. Let me just wait maybe 30 seconds more. Thank you so much for those of you who have been able to get in and use your name here. I've seen 21 names. If any of our committee, again, would like to also be part of this, you can. You can try this as well. All right. Shall we start? Oh, hang on a minute. Ms. Ika just came in. I think 25 is quite good. Oh, 26, 27. Okay, let me start, all right? Now you should be able to hear the background sound as well. Here's the question. So for those of you who are not able to join in and yet you would like to follow what questions are people working on, here are some of those questions. I will just drag it down slowly so you would be able to follow. And later on, if you wish, you can also check your answers. Okay. Let me play the background sound again. We'll play this quiz. Just give us a few more minutes, like 2 minutes ahead or 3. Notice that for every question, I started to get some statistics here. 18 correct and 3 incorrect for number 1. So if this is a class of 25, I would say this is a pretty good understanding that most of my students are showing. But there are some students that get it incorrect still. And hopefully by the end of this quiz session, I can get more correct answers. If not, I can choose what to do for follow-up, right? Perhaps following up with the students individually or, you know, keep the students after the session for a moment, just have a discussion, that type of thing. 19 correct, 19 correct, and 5 incorrect. Okay, let me see. It seems like all of the questions have been answered. So let me just end. I'm sorry if I cut off some of your remediation time. You know, the thing about this quiz is also, if you do not get it correct the first time, this is kind of the fish game early on. You will be provided with another opportunity to attempt. So second attempt, okay? So you can redeem yourself that way. So let me end the quiz. Let's see who's the winner of the day. Okay, Mr. Evan is first, Mr. Jeff is second, and H2 is third. Okay, and then after this, let me just skip the result, okay? because I think I'd be interested to show you another thing. And of course, these are all the statistics. Okay, we're not going to go into much detail on that, but I would like to come back to this part right here, the question part. This right here is a pretty, is a pretty nice results. You can see that out of 6 questions that I gave to all of you, there seems to be a smooth sailing in 5 out of 6. So it's a pretty good one, right? Pretty good result. Promising, make you smile. However, there is this one particular question marked red, which means most people typically get that question incorrect. Yep. So it's the other way around, right? 9 correct, 20 incorrect. Find the total of the common factors of 12 and 16. Oh, for this one, I just had an idea. Let me see who gets number 5 correct. These are the outliers. Oh, I've got a couple. Can I speak to Miss Anissa, please? Oops, sorry, not Miss Anissa. Can I speak to Miss Ayuko, please? Because you get number 5 correct. Hi, Miss Ayuko. If you can hear me, could you please respond?
Yes, can you hear me, Miss?
Oh, Mister, I am so sorry. I thought you're...
I use my doctor name.
Oh, I see. Okay, Mister. So what's your real name? Is your name Ayuko? No, right?
My name is Komang Widro.
Okay, Mister. I'm sorry. Now I learned something about you. Okay, so for number 5, could you just walk us through how did you find the correct answer? You answered correctly in this one. Which one was the correct answer, by the way?
For that question, actually, I just choose any random.
Oh, you did not really apply a method, but it just happened so that you got it by luck, isn't it, sir? Okay, thank you. It's still lovely to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me see again from my board. Who gets it? Because it says it's 9 of you. Okay, so I get, okay, some of these questions as well. Can I speak to Miss Widya, please?
Yes, Miss. Hi, I'm
Hello, Miss
sorry,
Widya.
my camera is off. I couldn't turn it on.
It's okay, Miss Widya. I can still hear you perfectly fine, and I'm sure others can hear you perfectly fine as well. Did you find a particular way, or did you also get number 5 by luck?
Actually, I listed out. I listed the factors of 12 and the factors of 16.
Very interesting. So you listed out the factors of 12 and 16, and what did you get as common factors of these two?
1, 2, and 4, and I total them.
Go ahead.
1, 2, and 4, and I total them.
1, 2, and 4, and I total them. So 1 plus 2 plus 4 equals 7. Thank you so much, Miss Widya. It's lovely to hear your voice and your explanation. Okay, so 1, 2, and 4, I suspect, and I may not be fully correct in this, but I suspect that the mistake people made was because we forgot, or some of you forgot, that 1 is also a common factor of 12 and 16, isn't it? Probably you are adding 2 and 4, but that's just my hunch. That's just my guess. Maybe correct, maybe incorrect. So you see, the brief like that following after a quiz can reveal a lot of what your students did in order to answer or progress through these questions. By the way, all these questions are also taken from MCEDU Hub from the assessment section. I just changed the format into, using a different platform. Okay, so it's readily available for you. And sometimes you don't have to, all you need to do is just think about the format sometimes, and the contents are readily available for you. So thank you, teachers. It's so much fun to do this with all of you. So let me go back to the teacher's questions. And whether you realize it or not, teachers' questioning is the epicenter of instruction and assessment. And we hear the word epicenter typically when we hear in the news that there is an earthquake or a potential earthquake someplace else. We live in Indonesia, Ring of Fire. So that's not totally uncommon for us to hear such news. So anyways, teachers' questioning is the epicenter, is the very central of activity and the central point of our instruction every day. You probably have heard me, asking you a lot of questions already throughout this session. Now, let me just share a quick experience. This is kind of something that I brought up earlier also perhaps about the word equivalent. One time I started off with a lesson and I immediately asked, what did you learn, from previous session? And then the student says equivalent. So the student had a hard time pronouncing the word equivalent. And this is someone out of, I think, a class of 20 who's bold enough to actually spit out the word, even though she's struggling. So I get a hunch that probably, even though the students have somewhat had prerequisite or previous knowledge about this, they probably are not fully confident yet. So that guides me in my lesson, thinking that, okay, I really must nail this concept down. Okay, so questions are indeed very, very crucial in the process of teaching and learning. So let me just show you all of these questions first. Okay, these are typically the kind of questions that you will ask anyway. So suppose you're using a PowerPoint with an illustration. So you have some items, in this case, the green hearts. How many green hearts do you see? What do you notice about the way these hearts are arranged? Are there equal amount of hearts in each group? Do all hearts belong to the groups? Are there any leftovers? Question number 5 is actually a hint or a segue into the next part of the lesson, which is there is a way to divide with leftovers. In this case, there's none, right? All green hearts belong to one or the other group, belong to both groups. What does the quotient represent? Quotient is another word that is probably not very easy to pronounce, let alone to grasp sometimes. Like, there are many ways that you can introduce this. Introducing the word is one thing, but helping students understand what does the quotient mean in these contexts is actually very deep. It's a deep question. What does the quotient represent? Now, in this case, what does the quotient represent? It's the number of green hearts that is in each group, isn't it? Now, let me ask this question to you, teachers, because you are teachers. Number 7. Is this division problem about sharing equally or grouping equally? If you wish to answer through chat, because probably your camera is not really working or your microphone's not really working, that's fine. If you want to raise your hand and speak up to the whole group, you're more than welcome. Is this division problem about sharing equally or grouping equally? Mardana, you can also be on the watch. If there is some answers through chats, perhaps you can notify me.
Okay, let me check.
Yes. Is this about sharing equally or grouping equally? That made you think, right? Because that's one of the interesting concept, and not just interesting, but this has longer consequences, not just in whole numbers, but is actually in fractions as well. Even more meaningful in fraction when we are talking about sharing equally or grouping equally. Let me stop sharing so I can see the chat.
Yeah, we have
more
some
conveniently.
answers now.
Yes, yes.
In.
Sure, I can just read it, Mardana. Thank you so much for your assistance. Both of them, grouping equally, sharing equally. Okay, that really made us think, right? So, okay, if you still want to keep them coming, so grouping equally, sharing equally. Okay, so which one? Because I see the word group, but it kind of like sharing as well, okay? So the quotient here is the key idea. The quotient here tells you what? It's the number of the green hearts in each group. Okay, so the number of items in the two groups, each group consists of 5 green hearts, and the quotient here is 5. So this is about sharing equally. What if I want to put the same problem, so 10 divided by 2 equal 5, and it's about grouping equally? It's gonna look something like this. And Paruswan, if you can help me give the spotlight to the manipulatives area, that will be wonderful. Yeah, in a moment you should be able to see my workspace. Okay, let me just do it. Okay, so that's my workspace right there. You see my hand, that's just my hand. And I'm gonna use the same thing, right? So the problem at hand is just 10 divided by 2 equal to 5. Okay, and my question to you was the previous problem, sharing equally or grouping equally. I revealed the answer to you already. That's a sharing equally situation because the number you get as a quotient, hasil baginya itu 5. And that tells you how many hearts, how many items are there in each group. Now, what if I want to show you, what if we want to show as a teacher 10 divided by 2 equals 5 in a grouping equally? What this really means is I would like to make groups of 2 from 10 items. Ya, jadi bedanya kita mau mengelompokkan di mana setiap kelompok ada 2 isinya. Okay, so we want to make groups of 2. So this is actually very convenient numbers because in your class, you could have possibly, if you have students, you can just say, okay, 10 students, raise your hand. I ask you to make groups or something like that. But here I'm just using cubes. So I want to make groups of 2. Jadi berdua-berdua. Ya, satu grup isinya 2. So I will put 2 cubes together. Okay, I'm making groups of 2 until all 10 cubes are finished. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm showing you 10 cubes in my workspace. And now what I'm trying to do is just making groups of 2 from these 10 cubes until all of these cubes are finished, are grouped. That's another way that you can also say it. Okay, so those are the groups after I made groups of 2. Okay. So how many groups of 2 will I get, right? So that's going to be 5 because now every group has 2. The previous one, we have the groups, we group those hearts, and then we obtain 5 as a result. So that's why the quotient is important in that regard. As you're making connection, you know, is this situation about sharing equally or grouping equally? Let me just illustrate for you. Another illustration would be, so let me just remove the spotlight first. This could sometimes be a little confusing, right? Perhaps, or maybe some students can even wonder, you know, what is the significance of it? Like I got it, like 10 divided by 2 equals to 5. Sure, when you're talking about numbers. Now, this will be even more useful if we're talking about fractions. So for example, you have 1 meter of ribbon, and then 1/4 of meter of ribbon is used to tie a parcel. How many parcels can you tie? How many parcels can you tie using the 1 meter ribbon that you have? Is that a sharing, right? I see Ms. Risky showing your fingers out there. Okay, 4 parcel. That is a grouping situation. Okay, so sometimes when you are doing a division by fraction or even dividing fraction with fraction, let's say I have half liters of water or half liters of liquid of some sorts, and then I'm going to transfer those liquids into smaller cups. Okay, the smaller cups can hold about 1/8 of a liter of water maximum. How many cups can I fill? Okay, so something like that. We are looking for the groups. The quotient is, you know, looking for the groups, and that becomes more meaningful. Okay. So the next one is the one with some leftover here. So I showed you my question. It's only fair if you show me some questions now. No, it's just another opportunity, right? I said in the beginning that I always love to hear you know, from you, and what you think about certain things is really enriching to our discussions as well. So here, what questions will you ask your students? So put yourself in my shoes right now. I've shown you some of the questions early on. These are the questions that I will ask my students as I'm guiding them through understanding what is 10 divided by 2 in this case, what's the result and what that even means. Now for this one, I have a different problem, 5 divided by 2. The answer is all provided here, okay? In a moment, I'm going to drift away from the screen. So if you wish to take a screenshot very quickly, just so that you do not lose the picture as you're thinking through the question, you are more than welcome to do it. Okay, so just take a screenshot of it. Or if you would prefer to just sketch it quickly on your notebooks, that's also more than welcome. And I believe, was that you, Mardana? Have you shared the link again with the participants?
Yes, miss.
Okay, thank you very much. He is very quick. Okay, so the same link will get you to the same page from Slido, the platform I'm using to get some responses from you. And just give me a few moments to activate another poll here. So I will activate this one instead. The question will be the same as the one that you are seeing in the PowerPoint. What questions will you ask your students as you show them that picture? Okay, so I'll move there in just a second. You do not have to write 10 questions. 1 or 2 will be enough. But what are the questions that you will ask your students as you show them the picture of those smiley faces? 5 smiley faces. Ah, lovely. Got one response. If your answer is not exact, what's the leftover? Lovely. Okay. So it will prompt the students to check, to look back, to look for the leftover, how many smile icons left. Lovely. That's going to be a nice segue into the concept of reminders. No, I didn't say it correctly. Remainders. Okay. As Indonesians, sometimes between the two, they're very, very mirip, yeah, very, very similar. How many happy faces are left over? Do all smiley face can be divided equally into 2 groups? Is there any lonely smiley faces that's not inside the group? Oh, this is nice. Lonely smiley face. What will you call the leftover? Oh, very, very nice. And that's
Right, educators. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate. You can ask it, type on the chat box, or you can also raise your hand and ask your question directly.
I'm back. So, okay. I don't see any questions yet. If you would prefer to wait, that's also fine. Like sometimes I'm getting some of those questions towards the end. I'll just wait for a bit now. If you have any questions you wish to raise at this point related to our topic, you're welcome. Okay. And at any point, if you also would like to raise something related to our topic, you are welcome to type it in the chat box. And later, as we get into another QA session, Mardana will give those questions to me so I can address them. Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think in the interest of time, let me just move on first to part 2. I named this part. This is still more or less demonstration / discussion with all of you. And this part is called, I just name it R&R to make us remember it easier. Okay. So it says rich learning activities for the first R and reflection prompts for the last R. And reflection prompts will be the end of the demonstration and also the end of the overall presentation today. Okay. So what are my goals of showing you this rich learning activities? These are the 3 goals that I had in mind as I planned this. The first one is these kind of activities should assess students' ability to problem solve and to apply math knowledge. Problem solving, of course, is at the heart of Singapore mathematics curriculum. And this is also what the Indonesian Minister of Education has promoted through the AKM that was mentioned at the beginning, problem solve and to apply. We would also like to promote connections between concepts and flexibility in applying this concept. You will see how flexible these concepts being applied are later on through some of the activities. And also connection, of course, between math concepts and sometimes even between math and other subject areas when it's appropriate. And lastly, these kind of activities also provide engaging contexts. The keyword, of course, is engaging, right? In which to explore the achievement objectives. So engaging context is also another key idea behind AKM, the assessment competency minimum. Yeah, engaging context in which students are able to apply what they know. They do not just know the content. Okay, so I have a little treat for you. This is a video, and this video is basically a narration or are reading through some pages of this book, let me also just tell you, I did not come across this book by chance. This is actually recommended in MC Hub as well as part of the teacher guides. So I found it there and I, followed through with it, and here we go. This is it. It's not the whole thing because the whole thing would be too long in the session, but let me just play this video now. And then we will do an activity afterwards. So please enjoy.
The Grapes of Math by Greg Tang, illustrated by Harry Briggs. Fish School. Of all the creatures in the sea, a fish is smart as can be. While others swim and play it cool, a fish is happy in a school. How many fish are in this class? Answer quick and you will pass. Here's a hint, a little clue. When counting fish, just look askew. The Grapes of Math. I stroll along a vineyard path, and there I see the grapes of math. Overhead the sun is blazing. Soon each grape will be a raisin. How many grapes are on the vine? Counting each just takes too much time. Never fear, I have a hunch. There is a match for every bunch. Snail Parade. One day while walking through a glade, I came across a snail parade. Rows and rows of snails I spied. How do I count them all? I cried. Don't just group the ones you see. Consider where a snail should be. Ant attack. It's a picnic, the ants all scream. How many ants are in this scene? Try to count them one by one. Before you finish, they'll be done. Find a square before you count. Soon you'll see the right amount.
Okay, I just cut it off until this portion, but there's actually more and more pages here in this book. I do not know the exact number, but there's certainly more to what I have shown you. And the next part here is a web page by the same person, Greg Tang, the one who authored this book. And what I would like to show you right now is that portion of the activity, which we can then try together based on what you have seen in the video. Okay. So again, I will rely on some voluntary responses so that you can participate in this one as well. Okay. So here, of all the creatures in the sea, a fish is smart as smart can be. And the hint here is, or the question first. The question says, how many fish are in this class? Answer quick and you will pass. Here's a hint, a little clue. When counting fish, just look askew. Anyone wants to speak or anyone's answering? Mardana, feel free to take a look and see if anybody is. Oh, I can actually access that. Mr. Evan is answering 16. Mr. Evan, would you like to tell us what you did in order to get a 16, please?
First, I'll just count the fish.
Oh, okay. Did you mean you counted one by one?
No, I do it in a pattern. So I start from the middle. It's actually 4, and then for the second row and the fourth row, at the fifth row, actually having the same amount of fish. So
hang on.
Okay.
I can't keep up with you. Okay, so you said you started in the middle and you saw that
Yes.
there are 4 fish. Okay, wonderful. What did you do next?
The next one, I see the third row and the fifth row. They are both having the same number of fishes. So it's supposed to be 3 and 3. Double 3 is 6. So I got 6 now.
Okay, so
And
so
then-
far we've got
yeah.
4, and you said double 3 now, so we got a 6.
6.
Wonderful. What else?
And
What
then
else
after
do you
that,
get?
the second row, and then the sixth row, there will be another 4 because double 2 is 4.
Ah, nice pattern. Do you see that? Did you follow what Evan is showing us? Okay, so that's also another 4. Wonderful. What else? I'm gonna
Yes,
add the
and-
rest later.
And then the last one is just 1 at the bottom and 1 at the top. So it's supposed to be another 2. So it's 16.
Okay, Very, very systematic, starting from the middle, and then you start seeing a pattern. Okay, so 4 and 6, what did I miss out? 4, and is that a 2? Did I miss on
Yes.
anything, or that looks about right?
No, it's right.
Okay, so 4 and 6 make 10, lovely. And then 4 and 2 make 6. So you've got
Yes.
10 and 6 make up 16. Wonderful. How about Mr. Nestor? Oh, also answer 16 before I put the answers, because I'm sure some of you
Yes,
are
miss.
also. Yes, Mr. Nestor,
Oh, yeah.
would you like to share how you found 16, sir?
Yeah, upon looking at the figure here, the shape, I just counted it slanting down there. So I started from the purple one going to another purple. So it's 4 and 4 and 4 and 4 going down.
Oh, you mean the one at the top, the purple one at the top, the one who's
Yeah.
kind of like swimming by itself?
Yes.
Okay. And then where did you go?
Then going down to the orange, the blue, and the purple again. So
Beautiful.
4 by 4.
So that's your first 4, and then
Yes,
following that,
by another
am
4.
I drawing it correctly, sir?
Yes, yes.
And then that's another group of 4 that I saw. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. 16. Thank you, Mr. Nestor, for sharing your insights with
Yes,
us. Okay.
Thank you.
He's actually following the hint, everybody. Okay. Mr. Nestor is smart. He's following the hint. That is not to say if you're not following the hint, you're not smart. You're smart in a different way. But look up here. It's actually a hint. When counting the fish, just look askew. And that's what Mr. Nestor has applied in this case, right? Askew means in bahasa, I think this is so satisfying to do, miringin kepalanya dikit, right? So if you miringin your kepala sedikit, then you found it's 4, right?
Yeah,
Those 4,
lean a little bit.
Lean a little bit, yes,
Okay.
indeed. Yeah, miring dikit tuh.
Yeah.
So you found groups of 4.
Okay, miss.
But you see that Mr. Evans' strategy incorporate making 10, which is also nice, a nice connection with what a lot of students in your class are probably familiar with, making 10, okay? Because after all, we are counting in tens, right? Like tens, hundreds, it's all repetitions of tens. Okay, shall we try another one? And maybe this time ibu-ibu nggak mau kalah ya. Ibu-ibu want to try. So thank you for the wonderful sharing done by our 2 teachers. So check, it's correct. I will go to the next poem. Okay. Can I just give you a different one? Maybe this one. This will be just another example, and I'm gonna wait for you to type up something. And if I saw your answer, I might ask if you will feel comfortable walking us through your method. Oh, the poem first, okay? It says here, one day while walking through a glade, I came across a snail parade. Jadi sekarang siput. Rows and rows of snails I spied. How do I count them all? I cried. Don't just group the ones you see. Consider where a snail should be. There's your clue. Of course, because this is activity page, I can also click on hint. I shouldn't probably did that, right? You're teachers. You're so good. Okay. Can I hear from, I think I saw this person's photo before. Is this Miss Fanide? Miss Fanide, can you hear me? If you can hear me, could you please unmute yourself so I can ask how you found the total number of snails?
Sorry, maybe my speaker is not really loud.
I can hear you just fine. Okay, could you walk us through, Miss Fanide? How did you find the answer of 22 in this case?
Okay, this one, right, I just read the clue, don't just group the ones you see. So I see in one group there are 5 snails, and there are 5 groups, and then 25, and then I see that in 3 groups there is 1 snail, it's not there. So 25
okay.
minus 3, then 22. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for being willing to share with all of us. I think that is very systematic and clear the way you explain your answers, okay? So the hint, she started off by pointing out, I am reading the clue here. It just says, do not just group the ones you see. Consider where a nail should be. So she said, oh, I see 5 rows of snails. So that's 5 by 5. Let me just go through text because I don't want to show you my bad handwriting. So 5 by 5, so you get 25. Yes, that's indeed a square number, right? 5 by 5 is 25. And then you see it's not really quite right. Why? Because there's some snails missing from their row. Perhaps they're way too slow, or I don't know, they were just hiding maybe. So you need to take that into account as you calculate. And there you go. Lo and behold, you've got 22. Okay. So thank you so much for making use of the hint. Isn't that fun sometimes to, you know, guess a riddle? I don't always write a riddle. If I cannot solve it, I get frustrated. But here, I think it's pretty straightforward, like they give you the clue. Okay, and this is not the only way. Just like when we were discussing the previous one, there were at least 2 ways. Mr. Evan and Mr. Nestor demonstrated 2 different ways that they could find the answer. So checking, and if you go through, I'm not going to go through all, of course, but if you just go through the different pages and keep clicking on the next poem, there's basically different hints available in this riddle page, okay, that you can access and then, or ask your students to access. And this I thought is indeed, as I've said, this was recommended in MC Hub Teacher Guide as one of the possible activities that you could do, even as a formative assessment activities. You know, are your students able to utilize some of the strategies they've learned regarding addition, subtraction, or even multiplication in order to figure out the correct amount? Okay, are they able to use those strategies flexibly? Are they always get stuck on one particular strategy of just keep counting, doesn't matter what the clue is, they will just keep counting, right? So that can reveal some ways that your student approaches problems, some of the processes that they went through in their mind as they are looking into the different pages or the different problems in the book, okay? At the end of the session, you will get access to my presentation. So don't worry, if you wish to try out this activity, you will have this address available on the PDF copy of this presentation later on. So that's the first one, making connection between a poem or some poems, along with the illustrations, along with the math skills, and that make the activities rich and engaging, okay? So the next 2 examples will have to do with some problems in an engaging context, and there's typically more than one way to approach or to solve these problems. And this will also not only providing engaging context, but this will enable students again to apply the knowledge into a particular problem, which is, you know, supporting problem solve, of course. So here I already revealed the purpose of each activity, and I'm using a supplementary resource here, which later on you'll be able to access. It says the purpose of this activity is to engage students in a non-standard unit to give a measurement involving fractions. So here's what the activity says. On the average, the teeth of an adult human are 1.5 centimeters long. Meanwhile, the teeth of a great white shark are 7.5 centimeters long. This looks like a friendly shark. It says great white shark. I guess it's only for illustration. How many adult teeth stacked end to end would be needed to make the same length as the great white shark tooth? Okay, can you imagine what that looks like? So if there is 1 shark teeth, how many adult teeth would need to be stacked end to end to make the same length as the great white shark tooth, okay? Why does it says non-standard unit? Because the idea comes from here. Can I get a highlight, please, for my workspace? Okay, and I can show you something that I would typically do for, yes, thank you very much, Pak Ruslan, for your assistance. Typically, this comes out typically when you are guiding your students to learn about geometry. Geometry in primary level starts with introducing geometry and measurement really. Start with measuring from non-standard unit. And by that, we mean we can use anything as a measuring tool. So for instance, let's just say I have this paper right here. It's a white paper and I want to know how long it is. Let me just make it a shorter distance so that it's just easier to demonstrate and faster. So let's just say, suppose you want to introduce your students to a non-standard unit. What you can do is, I just happen to have paper clips. You can use paper clips, okay? And stack these paper clips from one end to another in order to figure out how long it is between one end and the other end of the paper. So you could possibly stack them like this. How many paper clips? Of course, you can always ask your students, predict how many paper clips will it take in order to get to the other end. Okay, more or less it's like this. It's not exactly perfect, but it's about four paper clips. That's how long this is. That's what it means by standard unit. So you're comparing a particular, in this case, I want to know the length, right? So you're comparing the property of this paper, which is the length from one end to another, with a non-standard unit, which is just a paper clip. This is one type of paper clip. Those of you who have paper clip at your place, or I see some of you are in your classes, could be a different paper clip than mine, right? It may not be quite the same. As a matter of fact, I have a different type of paper clip. That's another paper clip I have. Will that still give me 4 paper clips? No, right? That's going to be different. It looks different, certainly. So in that case, that's what it means by non-standard unit, because you're trying to measure something up against a different objects, against another object, which in this case, human teeth versus shark teeth, or the other way around. Okay. So perhaps you can just quickly type in the chat, if you come across this kind of resource, or let's say this kind of problem, what are some of the math requirements or math skills or knowledge that students must have or must apply in order to solve the problem successfully? If you can just type it in the chat quickly, that will be great, I think. So looking at this problem and in light of what I just demonstrated, what do you think are some of the prerequisites or requirements that are necessary for students to attempt to solve this problem or to solve this problem successfully? Any thoughts or comments? Or you would prefer to speak directly? I think I see one chat coming in. So let me just stop sharing at the moment so I can see it conveniently. Addition in fractions or additions in decimals. Yes, so indeed students must be introduced to addition of fractions. Sure. Okay. Division of fraction. Sure. So how to divide between two quantities involving fraction. Sure. So let me show you what the sample responses look like. This is quite interesting. These are two different ways that students are solving these questions. I just named the students Andrea and Billy, okay? Andrea thought, okay, if 1.5 centimeter is how long the human teeth or human tooth is, right? 2 teeth make 3 centimeter. So she's using that clue. If 2 teeth make 3 centimeter, she's getting rid of the fraction already, then it means 4 teeth should be double the length, right? It should be 6 centimeter. But hang on a second, I don't really have, it's not really 6 centimeter, it's actually more than that. So how many more centimeter is still needed? Okay, 1.5. I know 1.5 is 1 tooth. I've got 4 tooths that make up 6 centimeter. I need 1 more. Then it's 5 teeth altogether. That is a valid strategy. She's using some knowledge of fractions, okay? She's even put here, okay, how do you get 3 from 1.5, you know? How do you get 3 from this 1.5? Okay, 1 and 1 make 2, half and half make 1. So 1.5 is friendly enough, right? Like it's nice enough for students to still be able to reason that way. For Billy, doesn't even bother going through a long working out. He just want to show, okay, this is it, right? This is what he shows. 1 teeth is 1.5. So he's like, okay, I'm just gonna use my grid papers here. So 1.5, and then 3 and 4.5. So he drew it quite carefully, though, I must say, even though he's not really showing all the works step up, you know, in like 5 different steps like this, 4 and 5, and then he just count, okay, that gives me 5 tooth in order to get to 7.5. Okay, so let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boxes filled out and a half. Okay, so Billy and Andrea both successful in solving the problem and using different strategies. Okay, typically when you come across a problem that enables your student to go through different strategies like that, it might be good to throw it at them every now and then, you know, so that you can also see their process of thinking after they have accumulated some knowledge that will enable them to do so. So you're right, like they need to know, they need to be familiar with the fractions first, how to operate with fractions and comfortable with those skills before launching this problem. These are just some of the teacher's dialogue that also go with it, which I've kind of talked through. Here's another one, sports top. It says, those of you who are thinking, who are teaching grade 5 or grade 6, teaching about algebra typically is formally introduced in grade 6. Something like this could be a good problem, whether it's a starter or you can also make it somewhere in the middle of the lesson or after certain skills have been covered, okay? So it says here, a sport team shirt with your name printed on the back costs $30 if your name has 6 letters. If your name has 10 letters, the same shirt will cost you $38. The cost is worked out on the price of a plain shirt plus a standard amount added on for each letter. What's the price of a plain shirt with no name printed? Okay. So you may think about, you know, if you were a student, you were trying to solve this problem, what would you do, right? Okay. And you can share it anytime in the chat. Let me see. Oh, bar model, of course. That's one of the nice visual in which you can illustrate this complex ideas, right? Because it is quite complex, really. You have, let me just show you what this sample answers look like. It is quite complex. There are 2 things to consider here. First is the price of a plain shirt, and the other one is, which we do not know, and the other one is also the price of each of the letter printed on the shirt, which we do not know also. So we do not know those 2 information, but we're given the price of 2 shirts with different amount of letters. One consists of 6 letters and the other one consists of 10. And I thought these solutions are quite interesting. Somebody mentioned bar model. I think it will go well with, if I were Joe's teacher, I can also show the bar model to Joe and then ask him if he could find a similarity between his model right here, between his drawing and the bar model. But this is the kind of model or visual that he come up with. All right, I'm looking at a shirt plus 6 letters, and I'm looking at the same shirt with 10 letters. 10 means 6 plus 4. So from there, he thought, wait a minute. If there's a difference of $8 between these 2 shirts, those $8 difference must have come from the extra 4 letters. Do you see the way he thought about it? It's quite smart. So 4 letters give you $8 or equivalent to $8. It means that 1 letter equals to $2. And from there, he worked backwards. All right, now I know each letter must be equal to $2. In a bar model, this is going to be the part of the bar model, isn't it? So $2, $2, $2, 6 times or 6 times. And he obtained 12. So the price of the shirt will be $30 minus $12, which is $18. Okay. Notice that he even utilizes another strategy here. Instead of subtracting it immediately, he decides to just subtract 2 from 30 and then subtract 10 from there. Some students like that, some students do not like that. Some students would appreciate more steps because it helps them see their thinking more clearly. Some do not like that at all. So you have 20 students, you have varieties of style, of course, even in solving problem. Here with Jill, it's the same starting point, but then he uses it, he or she, depends, uses it a little differently to figure out the price of the shirt. So sometimes allowing your students to write their solution, to show you some visuals, allow them to talk through a solution when it's possible, could reveal also their thinking process, what they know, what strategy they prefer. Those are just samples. But if you wish to explore more in your own time, as I've mentioned, you can have access to this resource as well. We're not going to have time to do this, but initially what I thought was involve you in some Desmos activity again, kind of like what you did earlier, and write the story. So this time I provide the answer. The idea would be provide the students with the answer or a diagram or a working out of a problem and ask them to come up with the question. And that's part of the creative tasks. And of course, to create means that if you remember, to create is actually at the top of the cognitive levels of Bloom taxonomy. So when we are involving students to create something, even as simple as this word problem, if you think about that, at the level that is very accessible to primary 1 students, or even a model, a bar model. Somebody mentioned about that earlier. Provide them with the bar model and as a stimulus for our students to create something. Okay. Sorry, that was supposed to be the background music had we done the activity before. Okay. So we have almost concluded this session today, but the last part of our discussion regarding strategies this afternoon will pertain reflection. Will be about reflection.
Okay, take your.
Can I
take
please?
your mobile, take your mobile phone first.
Miss Kiki, are you trying to talk to me? Okay, so for this reflection, just a little bit of introduction, and then afterwards I'll give us some examples for reflection as well. So according to John Dewey, of course, we do not learn only by experiencing something, but we learn from reflecting on experience, whether it is positive or negative experience happening to us, not until someone or a learner, a student, a child, or ourselves as an adult think through that experience that we truly value that experience in the long term and make it a learning experience that's meaningful for us. Another important idea is reflection, of course, is at the heart of metacognition. Okay, and often metacognition is really just mean thinking about your own thinking, about your process when you are approaching a problem. For example, how did you understand a problem? What's going to be the next step that you will take? Are you doing this correctly or not? Should you test it? Should you test your method? Should you test your answer? Those are all involved. Those are all reflective thought, and that is helping with the development of metacognition. Okay. So now this is going to be the last poll, and this doesn't mean to judge you or anything. This is just to, again, share experiences. And please choose one option that will best represent your class. My question is simple. How frequently do students in your class reflect on their learning? And Mardana, can you please share the link one last time?
Yeah, just a moment.
The participant. And I have not activated it just yet, so let me do that right now. Now it's activated, teachers. So you can please fill it out. It's now very easy. You don't have to type your answers. All you need to do is choose one among the 4 options presented here. How frequently do the students in your class reflect on their learning? So in other words, how frequently do you recognize those opportunities you've provided for them so they can reflect on their learning? It could be never, rarely, sometimes regularly. Yep, so far it's regularly. I think if it's built into certain, I know that certain curriculums have reflection built into every single unit. So that in itself will provide regular opportunities for teachers to check in with their students' learning in that form. In other curriculum, it may not be intentionally built up, but perhaps the principal or curriculum coordinator will try to encourage teacher to do that or to give reflection a little more regularly. Okay, I see some variety in your answers. And let me just go through a couple more. So I was just meaning to show you some examples for how does a reflection, or how does reflection look like? How can a reflection look like in a math class? And I just provide you with two types of journaling or reflection, okay? The first one is the one that is task specific. So let me just show you the two examples that I've provided. And then we will close it off with something that is a little bit more generic, which means that you can build or you can use this as part of the thinking or reflecting routine in your class, no matter what the topic, no matter what the grade level that you are teaching. So this one, math journal, okay? This looks like a word problem indeed, and it can provide opportunities for students to reflect more on what they have learned before about fractions in this case. So there are two boys here in the picture. There's the mom, I suppose, and the older kid says, I want a quarter of the ice cream. Well, Mariam, the younger one, says, I want more. Of course, right? They always want more. I want 1/8 of the ice cream. Okay, and the question is, will Mariam get more of the ice cream? These diagrams to show your answer. So this, after a student is introduced to the idea of fractions and equivalent fractions and drawing bar model, possibly drawing diagrams, can they now show an understanding from the same bowl of ice cream? Okay, so the same amount of ice cream, who will get more? The one who asks for 1/4 or the one who asks for 1/8? Okay. Here's another one. It's probably one of my favorites because it's so contextual, right? People are still doing this, at least in at least in our country, I know we're still doing something similar to this. And this has to do with knowing up until 5 digits, actually beyond 5 digits number. This is beyond 1 million. So it says Mark and Nigel each wrote a check for that amount, okay? And the first one is what Mark wrote. The second one is what Nigel wrote. Okay, so the first one reads 1,200,080,975 only. The second one says 1,280,975 only. So the prompts here, who wrote the amount in words wrongly? And explain the mistake. Did anyone catch that? Maybe one last response before I show the last part. Who wrote the amount in words wrongly, Mark or Nigel? The top one is Mark and the bottom one is Nigel. Did anyone catch that as I read that out loud? Let's see, Mark wrong. Mark, okay. So that can even be a tip, right? If you would just read it out loud, you might be able to identify it wrong and explain the mistake. Of course, you can also dwell on that. Ask your students to identify where did Mark do wrong in that case, okay? So in the beginning, we talked about one of the key elements of formative assessments. It will reveal misconceptions, okay? And sometimes when we do present those misconceptions and make that the very opportunity for our students to identify those mistakes, they learn even better. Like a lot of times, I don't know if you can relate to this, but certainly for me, when I make mistakes or when I learn from my mistakes, that sticks with me for a long time. So that could be used as an effective learning tool. The mistakes, misconceptions, examples like this could be a nice journal or reflection prompts for the students. You might recognize, again, this is also from MCEDU Hub level 5, so grade 5 level reflection. The last two, I will just show you very, very quickly, you might have done something like this as well, just to give you an idea. What else can you give your students if you wish to start incorporating or doing this kind of reflection more regularly in your classes? Something interesting that I noticed today. I learned about what? I'm confused about what? I would like to learn more about something. One way I can revise my work is by blah, blah, blah. How do you think Math Talk helps clarify math concepts for you? Imagine that you are a math teacher. Explain 4 things that you want your students to learn about math by the end of school year. How do you use math at home? One example during the work today. Challenges you face when participating in Math Talk. I think I saw a question from earlier session that somebody typed up. How do you actually mark or grade students' group work during the online learning? I think one of the ways that you could possibly get some feedback on, and you can also factor this in your rubric if you, so first of all, you can create a rubric, and then another one of the components in your rubric could be ability to work cooperatively, and you can get a sense of that not only by making some observations while the students are working, like for instance, you can use breakout rooms and then notice what they are doing, or you can ask them to write reflections about the way they process things and work as a group and factor that in to your assessment rubric. Okay, so as a recap, formative assessments help teachers shape instruction. And some of the assessment tools we have discussed today, the first thing is quiz, and then teachers' questions, rich learning activities, and lastly, reflection prompts. So at this moment, we are getting ready for the last QA, or if there were some question and answer other than the one I just addressed that you wish to also raise at this point, this will be a good time. Other than that, if you would much prefer to just share what you have learned from this session, aka your takeaways, you may just type it in the chat box. So that way we can encourage one another. And this is also another reflection type, right? What have you learned from the session? Okay, and what you're willing to apply as well. And that can help each other out, remind us what we have learned in this session. Okay, so Mardana, did you notice any other question that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so also looking at the time, not sure if we can. Just maybe
maybe one more
maybe
since
maybe just one. So
because I also answered the previous one. Somebody was asking how I will mark group work. So if there's other question that I missed from previous
there's
chat.
a question privately directed. Sorry, through private chat to me.
Okay.
So the question is, in earlier example, the student wrote 30 minus 12 equals 28 minus 10 equals 18. So should we ask the student to best write step by step? Because 30 minus 12 is not equal to 28 minus 10. So this is from Nahan, yes.
Yes, that is actually a really, really good point. I'm glad you pointed that out. I didn't, at first, I didn't really pay much attention on that portion, the notation, right? Which is actually crucial. So thank you for bringing that up. So let me come back to that part of the lesson so everybody can see it. This is the one that the teacher mentioned. Okay. So question was over here, because I was trying to put light. The reason why I did not really make a point on that earlier is because not that I don't think, so your question is excellent, because not that I didn't think that that was important, but I was trying to shed light more on the process, right? What is going on in Joe's head as he was trying to figure out the price of the plain shirt, okay? But I do agree with you. So here's what the question highlight over here. Notation, okay? 13 minus 12 is certainly, is 13 minus 12 the same as 28 minus 10? Well, if you think about that, 13 minus 12 does give you 18, right? 28 minus 10 also give you 18. So in that case, the mathematical sentence, the significance of the equal sign is really what you are showing on the left-hand side should be the same value with what you are showing on the right side. So in this case, I don't see a problem. I do see that 18 is on the left and 18 is on the right. Okay. However, I do see your point. Sometimes you want the students to, really, how to say this? Let me just gather my thought. So sometimes you do want your students to write it like, I throw another case at you. Like, for example, when we're talking about equivalent fraction, 1/2 is the same or equivalent to 2/4 is equivalent also to 3/6, right? These three fractions, are equivalent fractions. But sometimes I do make my students, or in my teaching, I do make it intentionally look like this. So I will, you see the difference? The first one, of course, we know that all three is giving you equivalent values, but typically when we are trying to show the students of this equivalence of half, it will be nice and it will be systematic if we are introducing them. Okay, how do we get the next equivalent or the first equivalent fraction of half? We multiply both numerator and denominator by 2, hence we get 2/4. What about the next equivalent of half? Okay, we multiply each of the numerator and denominator by 3, hence we got 3/6. Okay, so in that case, this format, which is the top down, right? You really put it step by step by step. You're getting a much better support for your explanation rather than putting it this way, because from 2/4 and 3/6, you really multiply by what? By 1.5, right? So it's not really convenient and it's not really supporting your explanation if your goal is to show the students how to find equivalence of half by multiplying by 2 and then multiplying by 3. But in this case, I would say, yeah, as I've mentioned before, actually the left side and the right side give the same values of 18. So I wouldn't bring the mark down, but I just want to say, as long as the students know 13 minus 12 is not 28, but 13 minus 12 is equal to 28 minus 10, which is 18 both. So if anything, I would perhaps put something like, let me just put a drawing here. Sorry, let me just redo that all over again. If anything, I would probably put a side note. It should be all 18. 18 is equal to 18 is equal to 18, something like that. But of course, if you prefer, to just avoid the students to mistakenly thought that 13 minus 12 is not 28, you can also ask them to just write top down and put that as a side note in the feedback. Good question. Thank you for that. I think that's it, Mardana. We're running out of time.
We're running out of time. So
Thank you so much. You've led us very efficiently and effectively in the session. So over to you, Mardana. Thanks.
Yes, so thank you very much, Miss Linda. So big applause to Miss Linda for her session. Yes, so unfortunately we ran out of time, so we need to move on from the Q&A session. So now before some announcement, I think we will do a group photo session first. So my colleague, Mas Ruswan, will help us with the group photo session. Mas Ruswan, can you, I think I need to, just a moment, I need to share my screen.
Okay. Okay, educators, may I deliver in Indonesia?
Ya, silakan.
Oke, Bapak Ibu, saya akan memimpin untuk foto session kali ini. Saya bisa melihat Bapak Ibu yang belum menyalakan kamera bisa dinyalakan dahulu, seperti Bapak Yudi, Bapak Albertus, Bapak Komang mungkin. Saya akan memfoto 3 kali ya Ibu ya, karena di sini ada 3 slide, karena partisipan kita ada 60-an ya. Oke, saya akan hitung sampai 3, bisa kasih reaction atau pose terbaik ya. Oke. 1, 2.
Your biggest smile.
Your biggest smile. 1, 2, and 3.
Make sure all your face is on the camera. Thank you.
Okay, one more. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, last one. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, done. Thank you, Madana.
All right. Okay. All right. So moving on. Please don't go anywhere just yet. We still have some more announcement for all of you here. So yeah, Mas Rusman, can you share the slide, please? Thank you very much, Mas Rusman, for the group photo session. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, so first of all, just a small reminder, if those of you, maybe some of you joined in the middle, don't forget to please fill in the attendance form. We already did this in the beginning, but for some of you who may miss it out or join in the middle, please fill it in so you can get your e-certificate, and be careful when filling in your full name and also your email address ya Bapak dan Ibu. Bagi yang belum, boleh diisi untuk attendance formnya ya, supaya apa namanya bisa mendapatkan e-certificate-nya. Baik. And next, we also want to share with you the link to download today's material. So Miss Linda has been informing you that you can download today's material. So here it is, the link to download today's material. We'll share it with you in a moment. Okay, yeah, so you can check in. I already shared it with you on the chat box. So check it out and can review today's training material. And next, we also need for all of you to help us in filling in the online feedback form. By filling in the online feedback form, then we can gain your feedback and be able to serve you better in the future. Ya Bapak dan Ibu, mohon bantuan untuk mengisi online feedback form. Kami akan berikan waktu sekitar 2-3 menit ke depan untuk pengisiannya. Baik. Ya, linknya juga sudah disampaikan di chat box. Bisa dicek, Bapak dan Ibu.
Pak Ruswan, barangkali mau audionya di play, bisa juga.
Oh ya. Okay. All right. So I think we can move to next. So yeah, don't go anywhere just yet. We still have some few announcements to say to all of you. So first announcement that we have, yeah. So thank you, educators. You can leave the session now. Sekali lagi Bapak dan Ibu, terima kasih sesi hari ini sudah selesai. Semoga kita berjumpa di sesi kami yang lainnya. Bapak dan Ibu sudah bisa meninggalkan ruangan Zoom. Terima kasih. Oke, sudah selesai. Masker lagi.